My name is Frank Berardino. I'm the president of GRA Incorporated. We're an aviation economics and finance company. We work for airlines, airports, air traffic control systems. And we do this work all over the world. Everything that we do involves investments or changes in regulations. I've been asked to review the DEA, the forecast in it, and the economic impact study related to this matter. I'd like to start by talking about the forecast, which has been referenced here today. And if you can see this chart not very well, the red line is the forecast, 416 operations in 2020. It's based on the Allegiant letter, which is about 2 years old. There's no underlying profit or market forecast. And if you did a calculation about whether it would be possible for Allegiant to pay for the improvements required to accommodate it here at the airport, the answer is no. So economically, that forecast doesn't make any sense. People wouldn't invest in it if that's all they assumed would happen here. Now, there's other things that could happen. One thing is there might be no operations here by Allegiant in 2020. That's possible. They've offered to start service in many places and never showed up. They've also stopped service at up to 40 airports in their history. Alternatively, there could be many more operations here, on the order of 3,000 to 4,000, which would be about the number of operations that happen today in Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a city with 2.1 million people. Atlanta regional area has almost 5.5 million people. Allegiant is coming for the region, not just for Paulding County. So there could be easily a lot more operations here than are showed in the DEA. And of course, if other carriers react and enter, there could be more operations still. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but a reasonable analysis would have been undertaken to account for a reasonable range of outcomes. And this forecast hasn't done that. So the second issue relates to the permanence of any activity that would be undertaken by Allegiant. This map, which you can barely see, is a list of all the cities that have lost service where Allegiant had originally started service. Now, these are cities where there was a significant amount of activity. If you count cities that had less activity, there'd be almost 40, I believe the number is 39, or 28.5% of the cities that Allegiant has ever served. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, but if one undertakes an analysis of an investment, one would say, well, what's the expected value? You take into account the downside as well as the upside. The downside is that they would leave, and the airport would be a white elephant and potentially the responsibility of the taxpayers. Now, this chart looks a little schizophrenic. There's a lot of up and down in it, and it's hard for you to see it. But what it is changes in operations by Allegiant at selected airports. There's 2 airports up there that I'd like to draw your attention to. The red line is Long Beach, California, which is an airport outside of Los Angeles. It's about as far away from LAX as Paulding is from Atlanta. In the first year of Allegiant's existence, there were 500 operations that year at Long Beach. For the next 8 years, there were 0. Then there were 2 years with some more operations, cresting again at 500, and then 0 again. The second one I'd like to draw your attention to is Mid-America Airport, which is an airport outside of St. Louis, where again there was a rapid increase from 2004 to 2006 in operations. Then service was discontinued in 2009, only to suddenly pop up again in 2013. So just because Allegiant starts service doesn't mean it will stay here, and it doesn't mean it won't come back. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, but these are risks that you should be aware of. So some might ask, well, what could you serve? How much activity could there be at this airport, just the way it is today, if it had the 6,000-foot runway? Well, this map is a listing of all the leisure destinations on the Allegiant's route network that you could serve from here. So the only places left off that are their leisure destinations are the West Coast ones, Los Angeles, Oakland, and Las Vegas. They're too far away for an A319 aircraft. You can't get a full load off this runway, so they wouldn't serve it because they need very high load factors to make money. But everywhere else is in game. And if you did a typical schedule on a peak day in the peak month, you'd have activity through most of the hours of the day, but only 5 hours of the day would there be more than one airplane on the ramp out there. And it's easy to accommodate 2 airplanes even off of one gate. I live about 5 miles away from Trenton. They do it every day. One of the things that the DEA has to do is establish purpose and need. One might ask one question. Frontier and Spirit Airlines already serve all the Florida points that are in the DEA forecast that was done for that study. So there already is ultra-low fare service in the Atlanta region to all of those points. If we then expand it out to include Southwest Airlines, there's many more points served by low-fare carriers than what could possibly be done here at Paulding. So again, these issues need to be addressed in the study appropriately. They weren't, and that's my only role here, to identify the issues. Now, there was an economic impact study that was done that was just released last week. It doesn't consider some things that are important for you to understand. First, it fails to consider the fact that Allegiant has a history of either leaving or threatening to leave a community. This summer, they got into a dispute with Phoenix Mesa. It's one of its largest focus cities, with more activity than would probably happen here. Yet they threatened to walk across town to Sky Harbor, and you probably can't see the quotations here, not about time to read it to you, but essentially they're threatening to leave over economic incentives they didn't like that were being provided to another carrier. So this is the kind of thing, the political activity you might get into, but more importantly, a DEA should take into account both the upside and the downside when expressing economic impacts, never mentioned in that report. The InterVista study also implies that most of the economic benefits from the activity here would take place in the county. But it used the wrong methodology to estimate those benefits. In truth, most of the jobs, most of the economic benefits will leak out of the county. They just computed them incorrectly. One of the big issues was that half of the benefits are due to inbound passengers, people from somewhere else flying here, mostly for personal travel. Now, one problem with that was that they forgot to say that if there wasn't an airport here, some of those people would fly to Atlanta instead. And maybe some of them would drive, but they just counted all of them as a net increase. So clearly there's some double counting there. Clearly some of those people would be visiting friends and family. They might stay with them. So instead of spending money at hotels and at restaurants, which is the reason why there's such a big economic benefit, they'd be staying home, or at least they'd be spending less. And finally, of course, a lot of the local spending would be elsewhere outside of the county, because there are many more things to do in Atlanta than just stay in Paulding. That's not to say anything bad about Paulding, it's just Atlanta's a big place. So here's the critical thing I think that you need to understand. If you're going to swap a Paulding flight for an Atlanta flight, and you care about the region, then for every dollar that's spent at Atlanta, there'll be more regional jobs and more regional economic benefit than for a dollar spent at Paulding. And the reason is, there's already a city in Atlanta, so they have lots of businesses that can provide inputs to those activities at the airport. There are already specialized aviation businesses at Hartsfield, so they're already there to clean the planes, maintain them. That's not true here at Paulding, so on a regional basis, the trade may not be, on a one-for-one basis, something that the region would benefit from. Thank you.